Hey guys, Sam here from Chalice and Chains, and today I wanted to try to do a quick video on No Excuses, Play Numenera. This is in the series that Chris Wilhelm kind of started, his No Excuses series about trying to really kind of get players to play a system that maybe they don't necessarily own or they haven't tried before, so that they can test it out, see if they like it, see if they may want to get involved with that system, invest in that system. But hopefully these videos will help you to get over that, well, I don't know the system, I don't really want to play, or, I don't want to ruin the fun for maybe somebody who already knows how to play. Don't worry about that, especially with Numenera. And I'm going to try to make this really quick, because really there's not a lot that you need to know as a player in Numenera. So I'll quickly go over the mechanics and give you kind of an idea of how the system works. So really quick, the Numenera is based on Earth, but like a billion years in the future. So it's almost this sort of post-apocalyptic setting in a way, although it's kind of, you blend that with sort of quasi-fantasy setting. The 8 worlds prior to the 9th world where you're in now have risen and fallen. They've been great civilizations. They've had amazing, unbelievably, high technologically advanced civilizations, and they have also fallen. And so you live in a world where all of this technology sort of exists, although you don't necessarily know how to use it. You don't necessarily know what it does. Some of it may be breaking down, but it's known as the Numenera. All this kind of technology is known as the Numenera. And so your characters essentially are exploring the world, finding this Numenera and kind of seeing what it does, right? So it's a really neat setting, and it's very different than your traditional fantasy. That's also an important thing to know. This is not traditional fantasy, and it's also not really sci-fi. It's a blend of the two. It would be more like science fantasy, although less so than, let's say, Ashes of Volcana for Fantasy Age, for example. So that's kind of the setting in a nutshell. The mechanics basically work like this. Everything is based on 3, right? You have 3 kind of character descriptors. You have a glaive, which is kind of like your fighter, a jack, which is your jack of all trades, right? Your kind of roguish type character, excels in skills and stuff like that. And then your nano, which is sort of like your spellcaster. Although the nano is a little bit different because they don't use magic per se. What they actually do is sort of can understand and utilize the nanoparticles that are floating around in the world to create these cool effects. Now, to the people of the 9th world, that looks like magic because they don't have a full understanding of this technology. And that's sort of the premise right behind the whole thing, is that it's so highly technologically advanced, but you don't understand it, so it's sort of indistinguishable from magic. So those are your 3 kind of descriptors. And then you have 2 other things that kind of make up your character. And you'll have, maybe you are strong, you're fast, you're clever, you're careful, stuff like that, right? So maybe you're I forget what the exact descriptor is, but, a quick glaive who fights with panache, okay? You have this sentence, basically, that makes up your character, or a phrase or whatever. And that kind of gives you mechanical abilities. So in that example, you're probably something like a swashbuckler, and you're going to have abilities that are tied to those different descriptors, and foci is the other word. So you have that, right? And then you also have 3 basic abilities, right? You'll have might, which represents your sort of physical abilities. You'll have speed, which represents sort of your agility-based skills and attributes. And then you have intellect, which is your mental and social. And these have a pool, right? So you have a number assigned to those, whether it's, 14, 10, 7, whatever it might be. And that makes up a pool. And that pool is what you use to keep track of sort of your stress and your and sort of damage per se taken during combat, but it also is a resource that you can use to do better on your rolls by reducing that pool. So let's talk about that for a minute. So the core mechanic in Numenera is that you roll a d20, and your d20 roll is against a difficulty. That difficulty rating might be something simple, like a 2, which, you know, is a simple task to overcome, or a low-level, you know, creature that you have to fight. But the difference is that a difficulty 2 represents a target number 3 times that. So in this case, a 6. Okay. And what that means is that you have to roll a 6 or higher on your dice if it's a difficulty 2. So you can see a 3 is a 9, a 4 is a 12, 5 is 15, 6 is 18, right? And then 7, 8, 9, and 10 are basically impossible to hit without reducing the difficulty. Okay. So reducing the difficulty is important. That's how you do things in Numenera. That's how you don't add bumps basically to your rolls, with the exception of a few things. You're not adding modifiers, you're reducing difficulty. And the way you do that is by spending points from your attribute pool, the appropriate one. So for example, you're coming up against a 6th level creature that you've determined you need to fight. So you realize that would be a roll of an 18 on the dice, and you're like, boy, that's pretty difficult. I don't know that I want to chance that. So what you do instead is, and you realize, oh, but I have a light weapon. Well, the nice thing about a light weapon is that although it only deals 2 damage, it reduces your difficulty by 1 step. So because you're fighting with a light weapon, that means that you are now looking at a difficulty 5, which is a 15 target number instead of a 6. But you're still like, you know, that's still pretty high. I don't want to take that much of a chance that I'm going to miss. So I'm going to expend effort. I'm going to spend points from my might pool, in this case, 3 points, to reduce the difficulty by 1 step. So you've gone from 6 originally, 5, you know, because of the light weapon, and now it's down to 4 because you expended effort. So that means you went from originally an 18 number that you had to hit on your dice to a 12, much more manageable. Okay. And so they also have things like edges, for example. So maybe as a glaive, you have an edge in might. And what that means is whenever you spend a pool, or you spend effort from your might pool, instead of spending the standard 3 points, you only have to spend 2, right? So a jack most likely gets, I think they get an edge in speed, and a nano typically gets an edge in intellect, right? And so you have different tasks, different abilities that different tasks will require you to roll on different parts of your attributes, and, you know, you can expend effort that way to reduce difficulty. So that's the core mechanic. And then you have, whenever you take damage, typically damage isn't really damage, it's more like stress, and it reduces your pool, right? So your might pool is the first one that would be reduced during a physical fight. Your intellect pool might be reduced if it's mental damage or something along those lines. And sometimes speed pool is the first one to be damaged if it's something maybe like poison that slows you down, or something along those lines. But what'll happen is you'll reduce your pool, right? And when you reduce your pool, if one of your pools gets down to 0, you go 1 step down the damage track. And there's only 4 steps, the 4th one being dead. So what that means is, in a way, you almost have to be careful about spending your effort, because if you're in a combat situation and you're spending effort to reduce your rolls, but you're also taking hits, you can quickly find yourself, in a tough spot. So, but there's a lot of flexibility there. The other thing to know is that the player rolls all the dice, and it's against static difficulties, right? So what that means is if you're being attacked by a creature, your difficulty is based on the creature's level, and you roll to defend. Okay, so what that means is if you're fighting a level 4 creature, you have to make a defense roll, most likely a speed roll, against a difficulty of 4, which means you have to roll 12 or higher on your dice. Now, again, you can spend effort to reduce that difficulty even more. You can, you may have other items or abilities that will help reduce the difficulty, stuff like that. But you roll the dice, right? So let's say you roll and you fail, okay? So let's say he has, let's say he deals 4 damage, right? A lot of the time that's how it works in Numenera. The level of the creature is the amount of damage they deal, right? So it's very simple. You know exactly what's going to happen. You know what to expect. It's simple. There's not a lot of math. There's not a lot of look up this rule. How does this work? Stuff like that. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on for the purposes of this video is Cyphers. Cyphers are an integral part of the Numenera game, and they're basically pieces of technology that are sort of a one-use item that give you special abilities that you can use that one time. So in Numenera, your characters don't have things like feats, right? Like you might see in D&D or something like that. There's very little that the base character gets, but that's made up for with Cyphers. So what'll happen is you might go out into the world and you might be in a facility somewhere and you find these Cyphers, these pieces of technology, which you don't fully understand what they did or what they were for, but you're able to realize, oh, well, I could use this device to produce this effect. Even if that's not what it was necessarily intended to do originally, you can figure out how to make it do that. So for example, some of them deal damage. You might have a Cypher that you can use to create, an electrical field that blows somebody up or shoots fire. You might have something that can create a shield temporarily for you to help with reducing damage. You might have something that gives you the ability to fly or levitate or hover. All this stuff, but they're one-off items, right? And so those are items that you can use during the game to produce these effects. But if you have too many of them together at one time, they can start to cause issues. They can blow up. They can create issues for you, negative issues for you, all kinds of stuff. So that's the base. That's it. That's really all it works. All you do is roll a d20. The game master tells you what your target number is, and then you guys can work out how to either reduce that difficulty or what you might have to help you make that roll easier. And the key to being a player in this system is you don't ask what you're going to roll. You simply tell the game master what you want to do, and the game master will tell you how to do it. And I'm going to link it in the description below, there is an online character generator that can basically create the character for you. If you don't have access to the books, you're going to need a little bit of help, from the game master or somebody else that has a book to essentially create your character. But like a tier 1 character is extremely easy. It will take you very little time. Or you can play a pre-generated character, which might not be a bad idea for your first time playing. And that will allow you to play. It's very easy. So check out Numenera. Don't hesitate to jump in a game, even if you haven't played. If a game pops up and you're interested, let the GM know, hey, I really want to play. I don't have the system. I'd be interested in possibly a pre-generated character. Let's do it. So if you guys have any questions about Numenera or anything like that, drop me a line, leave a comment here on the video, on Facebook, whatever. If you like this video, go ahead and click like. If you don't, click dislike. That's fine. Subscribe if you want to see, stuff like this. I also have a couple of Numenera actual plays. So check all that out. This is Sam from Chalice and Chains. Happy gaming.